Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to have all of you with us this afternoon as we bring the House Education and Public Works Subcommittee of Motor Vehicles and Public Works to order. The only item that we have on the agenda this afternoon is Senate Bill 449, which is Senator Martin's bill. And at this time we have a list of attendance roster. If you would like to sign on this list, if you would like to speak, we'd also ask that you sign on this list to speak. We do have a few rules that we would ask that you observe this afternoon because there are quite a few people that would like to speak or to be heard on this bill. Is that you limit your comments to 5 minutes if you are speaking for the bill, and that we only have 2 representatives to speak from each organization on the bill. So if you have 2 folks from your organization that would like to speak, that would give you a total of 10 minutes per organization. Is there anyone out there that has not signed up that would like to speak? Everyone's on the list. At this time, I would like to recognize Senator Larry Martin, who is here with us. This is his Senate bill, and Senator Martin, we're so delighted that you could make it over this afternoon. We realize the schedule of the Senate, and glad it worked out that you could be here. We're going to turn the floor over to you, and as we begin our deliberation on 449.
You can hear me a little better. I see red, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee. It's a real pleasure to be over here. It's been a while since I've been in one of these committee rooms, and Representative Walker, I don't remember it being quite that far away from the podium.
We do that when we sign.
But in any event, I appreciate your courtesy and the opportunity to speak to you about this bill. If you'll notice that in the reading of the bill, it's a little bit different language or phrasing for the ordinary bill. What I did is I took a memorial resolution and had our staff draw it as an act, as a proposed bill. And the reason I did that, and I won't go into a lot of the detail, you know about Real ID and you know how it passed, and you know that Congress had rejected it in fall of, I think it was 05, no, 04, fall of 04, and then they passed it in an ominous bill that had to do with Iraqi war funding and that type thing. I think there was some Hurricane Katrina funding, and it was rolled up in a conference committee and adopted, and essentially puts a lot of requirements on states to comply with. And I think the initial deadline, and Ms. Adams, I'm just going to tell you, Marcia Adams has been tremendous. I know in discussing it with me and my delegation and with all of you, anybody that's wanted to talk about this thing really since Congress passed it, she's been extremely familiar with and keeping up with all the developments, and she can give you the latest. But as of October this year, Madam Chairman, South Carolina is going to be, like all the other states, required to enter into some sort of compliance agreement. None of those dates have changed, and the kicker is that if we don't do something as a state in terms of public policy, our governor, our Department of Motor Vehicles is going to be faced with the situation of having to decide where to comply with something that requires every one of our citizens within a 5-year period of time, beginning next year, to have all their documents, original documents, birth certificate, proof of residence, Social Security, in many instances, birth certificates, not all that readily available for a lot of older citizens. They just don't have them. In many cases, some cases, they never have them. And that's going to be required as a requisite in order to get your driver's license renewed. And that's going to be extremely burdensome to comply with. And I would submit to you, Congress didn't well think this thing out. I'm as patriotic as the next person, and I want to do what I can to make sure that we don't have situations where terrorists and anybody that walks in off the street can get a driver's license and identify themselves, get on an airplane and blow up the world. But that's not that's not what this is about. South Carolina doesn't allow non-resident aliens to obtain driver's license. We never have allowed that, Mr. Chairman, and we have a pretty good system in place for that type of verification requirement. But this bill just goes to the other extreme. The federal law, Madam Chairman, goes to the other extreme, and I can tell you, if we have to comply with that, it's going to set our DMV back, in my judgment, in ways that we never dreamed possible. If we think what happened during the computer changeover days was a terrible environment, all of us in here remember that, and I experienced the aggravation and the phone calls just like many of you did, I can tell you this will make that look like a Sunday afternoon in the park, in my opinion. I don't think the DMV offices around South Carolina have the waiting rooms, nor do they have the parking lots to accommodate all the aggravated citizens that are going to be waiting to get into those buildings around the state with their original documents to get their driver's license renewed and have to go back. It's going to require multiple trips. You got to take it, leave it, then they got to verify it. There's no database in place to verify these documents, so it's just a real problem. So here's the bottom line, as I see it. We opt out of this thing, and we say we're not going to do it unless it's funded, and the privacy concerns, and I'm not going to get into all that because I know a lot of folks are here to talk about that, but there's some serious privacy concerns about this. People being able to steal your identity, passing all this information around the state, not just around the state, but around the nation. People's identity is going to be laying out on counters for everybody to see, birth certificates and all that goes along with it. And I can tell you it's going to be a tremendous burden that we're all going to face in that regard. About 1 million drivers, Miss Adams, I think, in South Carolina were not born in South Carolina. So those 1 million drivers over the next 5 years are going to have their birth certificate verified in every nook and cranny by the DMV around the United States. And in many of those places, Coach, they don't have a centralized vital records office. They have them in every little county, or every little parish, or every little village. And so it's going to be a burden for them to have to deal with that. So what I would like to see us do, and I'll end with this, what I'd like to see us do, and the Senate took this position, is we're not going to do it unless it's funded, unless these privacy concerns, and I can tell you, I don't believe the Congress is going to cough up $20 billion to fund this thing. I just don't believe they're going to do it. And I don't believe they're going to address the privacy concerns. And if we don't do it, and we have to begin complying, then when the stuff hits the fan with our citizens and the DMV is having to comply with it, who's going to be at fault? Who are the citizens of South Carolina going to complain to? They're going to complain to you and to me, because we're the ones that are having to bear the responsibility. Members of Congress, you can tell them, say, well, you have to call your member of Congress and complain to them because they passed this federal law. They're not going to know anything about it. Those staffers in those congressional offices are not going to know a thing about what Real ID is all about. Well, we didn't have anything to do with your DMV implementing this. So what I would ask us to do is pass this out and put South Carolina on the list of states, and I think there's about 6 or 7 so far, that have